Hi guys, welcome to another Favourite Fridays review, and today we're going to be talking about Favourite Worst Nightmare by Arctic Monkeys. Now, I really like Arctic Monkeys, especially their first three albums. I felt Suck It and See and AM weren't the greatest albums in the world. They definitely lacked a lot of what I liked about the first three albums. Whatever people say I am, that's what I'm not. Their debut album was just fucking fantastic. Honestly, one of the best debut albums I think I've ever heard from any band. The songs in the first album were all about the nightlife that the band experienced and the sort of characters that they saw. So pretty much any young person who goes out and shit can listen to that album and, listen to it and recognise all the characters that they describe on the album. The way they talked about the nightlife scene was definitely different to how everyone else was singing about it, and I definitely think they had a huge angst-filled quality to that first album. The guitars sounded beautiful, they were crunchy yet at the same time clean, and that album pretty much set in place many of the sounds that post-punk revival bands, especially in the UK, would replicate for years to come. But for me, their second album, Favourite Worst Nightmare, is where the band really started to find themselves. The album shows a huge progression for the band, including lyric-wise but also music-wise. The album is filled with so much more emotion and energy than the first album, and also the songs are so much louder too. The songs on this album take more influences from all over the place, including ska and also some psychedelic sounds on a few tracks too. Like, many people say that the album Humbug was kind of a good transitional record, but I actually think this was kind of a transitional record as well. Every single one of their albums, including Suck It and See and AM, have shown progression from where they were originally to where they are now. It's like they've slowly been changing, and some of the groundwork has been set on Favourite Worst Nightmare. It's also their first collaboration with longtime producer James Ford, who produced all their other albums except for Humbug. And in my opinion, on a musical level, this album is much stronger than their previous releases, and honestly also any release they've done since then. Whereas on the first album the only guitar effects were distortion effects, on this album there's a huge range of different effects, which definitely makes the tracks sound much more complex, and it definitely adds a lot to the guitars too. The first track on the album is Brianstorm, a fantastic opening track. The drum work on this track is breathtaking, honestly some of the best that Matt Helders has done in his entire career in my opinion. And the track shows a heavy influence from surf rock. I think this song is full of the energy that we know from the band, but it also has a lot more maturity that we hadn't really seen before too. The riffs in the track are incredibly memorable and well played, and there's also a tremolo-picked guitar section right in the final verse that makes the track sound huge. After this we have the track Teddy Picker, which has this really great marching beat to it. It starts off with a fantastic drum riff. The track is about striving for fame, and when finally getting it, the bad stuff that comes along with it. And the guitar solo on the track shows the more psychedelic sound that some of the album shows, and it's definitely not super complicated, but definitely more complex than some of the stuff on the previous album. Definitely shows some progression guitar-wise. The next track is D is for Dangerous. Something that I liked about the first album, which they didn't do too often, was when they had Alex Turner and Matt Helders kind of singing in parallel at times. And this track actually shows that off really, really well. An example of this on the first album was You Probably Couldn't See for the Lights, but You Were Staring Right at Me, and I thought that did it really, really well, but this track actually does it so much better. And lyrically, I think this is one of the strongest tracks on the album. Next up, we have the song Balaclava, which starts off with simply bass and vocals. There's something about the bass riff that feels like it's building up to something, sort of like it's almost like a walking riff in a way. There are some really, really catchy guitar riffs on this track too. The bridge sounds really epic and has this really cool sounding affected guitar too. I really like the lyrics on this track too, which compare a bad relationship to a violent robbery. And next up we have definitely one of the highlights and probably one of the band's most famous songs with Fluorescent, Adolescent. This song shows the band's knack for writing these really, really catchy and great indie rock anthems. This is one of the tracks on the album that shows heavy ska influence as well, which definitely sets it apart from some of the other tracks. This track is just so catchy and memorable. Honestly, I don't actually have any problems with this track. I think it's as close to perfect as a song can get. Although the lyrics are sung really fast, there is definitely a really cool sing-along quality to it. Like, I've been to many parties where this is played and everyone has sung out every single lyric. And the final chorus on this track is just absolutely beautiful. This track is definitely one of the best, catchiest pop songs they've ever written and easily a highlight of their career. Next up we have a massive departure from the rest of the album with Only Ones Who Know. This song's a slow ballad, kind of something akin to some of the songs that were on Humbug and even Suck It and See. This is the first time we actually saw the band do a proper slow emotional song, except for possibly Riot Now on their first album. I really like the way this song is placed halfway through the album, almost like it's an interlude in a way. It's incredibly beautiful and easily one of the most underrated songs this band have ever done, and it really shows that Alex Turner can do these very slow and soft vocals without sounding really cringy. Like, it sounds like he's trying to be really sexy on Suck It and See and AM, and it just really doesn't work, whereas in this he just kind of sounds normal, and I much prefer his slower vocals on this track than pretty much anything else they did slow-wise. And next up we have the track Do Me a Favour, which is probably my favourite track on this album. The clean guitars sound beautiful and really complement the pounding drums and bass lines of the track. And this track is one of my favourite types of songs where it starts off really slow and quiet but then explodes into something loud. And when this track hits, it's possibly the loudest track on this album. It has this huge energetic explosion which sounds fucking fantastic. This is definitely one of the most emotionally impactful tracks on the album too. It's full of anger with an underlying hint of sadness to it too. Next up we have This House is a Circus. This track definitely shows the psychedelic influence, especially on the guitars, which has a huge amount of reverb on them. And if it weren't for those guitars, this song could easily fit on their first album. The song is about youthful antics, which the first album very much was kind of about. And the instrumental bridge on this track is so exciting and aggressive. And next up we have If You Were There, Beware, possibly the most psychedelic track on the whole album. It's incredibly energetic, but at the same time it's quite slow and reverb heavy too. The track sounds absolutely huge. I can definitely see this being a great song live. And the bridge that has the heavily distorted vocals and the affected guitars just sound absolutely beautiful. The track's about the paparazzi hounding the loved ones of Alex Turner, which I definitely think is an interesting thing to write about. Next up we have The Bad Thing, which is a song about people who go out and cheat on the night scene. This is another track that I think would have definitely fit on the first album and does kind of feel a tiny bit out of place on it. Although it's probably my least favourite track on this album, it's definitely a really good one. And we go back into more psychedelic territories with Old Yellow Bricks. This definitely shows some of the sounds that were explored more on Humbug. It's a song about leaving your hometown and realising that the outside world isn't really that great. The instrumentation is really funky and marches all throughout the song. And the instrumental bridge to this is just fantastic. The guitar work is beautiful and definitely some of the most interesting and complex on the whole album. This song definitely shows heavy progression for the band, but also signs that the band can and evidently did go somewhere else. And then we have the final track, 505. This track starts off with an organ track which is actually sampled from the Good, the Bad and the Ugly score. This is another track on the album that shows more emotional depth than we've ever seen before from the band. It's a gigantic closing track and definitely a fantastic way to end the album. The song is structurally similar to Do Me a Favour. It's somber, loud and epic. It starts off slow but then blasts into this huge song. For me, Favourite Worst Nightmare shows a lot of progression for the band. Although it doesn't sound completely different to the first album, it definitely shows that they've come a long way and there's a lot more influences from all different places on the album. It's much more emotional and better crafted than the first album in my opinion. Every bit of instrumentation on this album is just perfect, from the funk-inspired beats of the bass and drum to the more psychedelic and huge sounds of the guitars. In my opinion, this album just gets better and better every time I listen to it, and it's a fantastic follow-up to a debut album that I don't think anyone thought could be topped. It's in my opinion Arctic Monkeys' best album to date, and probably going to be their best album that they ever do in my opinion. So what did you think of Favourite Worst Nightmare? If you've listened to it, let me know in the comment section below. I know I said I was going to do a 2,000 subscriber special, and don't worry, that is still coming. I'm actually going to work on it literally after finishing this video. Now I've finished all my college work, I'm going to focus on YouTube again. But over the next few weeks, videos will be very, very limited. I mean, there'll be more videos a week than before. Hopefully there'll be at least a video every week. But for the next few weeks until I've gotten the 2,000 subscriber special, don't expect like 2 or 3 videos every couple days or anything. Videos will be kind of limited until I get those specials done, and then hopefully for the next couple months until I go away to university, videos can be incredibly frequent. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.
It's your fucking nightmare!